Yo people, welcome back to the YouTube channel. You already know what time it is. It's time for another video. Big up your damn selves in the building. Make sure you smash up the likes every single damn time and subscribe if you are new. Let's get straight into the video. A lot to cover this morning. Unfortunately, we start with a setback. Yeah, Reece James 10 days ago in his recovery, in his rehabilitation, brother is back on the sidelines again. At least he is training alone in isolation like it's 2020, not with the group, not with the squad, not going to be available for Arsenal, Nathan Gissing reports. Listen, I'm starting to get very concerned for Reece James because we all love the player. He's the captain of the club now. When he's on his day, when he's playing regularly, consistently, this guy is for me the best right back in the world. I think Real Madrid recognised that. I think a lot of people that watch Reece James over the years, even though there isn't maybe the evidence in terms of consistent performance at the highest level to, availability is your best ability type thing, to stack up and say outrightly he is undeniably the best right back. But for me, with what I've watched with the other right backs out there, I believe he's the best balanced. Obviously, there's the Carl Walkers out there as well, who's obviously getting a little bit older, who you can bring into the conversation. But Reece James going forward with his cross, with his shooting, set piece taking, people are not even aware of outside of Chelsea what he's capable of, physicality-wise, tackling-wise, positional versatility-wise to play wing-back, right-back, centre-back. The guy in a three, the guy is just, for me, the creme de la creme. Unfortunately, we are not able to see it on a regular basis. I'm getting very, very concerned, very worried. Now, call me a hypocrite, but Reece James is of the upper echelons of footballer where I am willing and would always be willing, I guess, to always cling on to some hope and would never really entertain selling him because he's just that good. And we have Malo Gusto, thankfully, one of the smartest pieces of business we've done in recent years, to have a fantastic, adequate replacement lined up for Arsenal, ready to go back from suspension. But Reece James is just that good that I would just love for us. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medic. I don't know if he needs surgery or whatnot to get himself back on track. But whatever it is, give him the grace of the time needed to go through that. If he needs surgery, let's get it done. Whatever it takes to get this guy fit and firing again, because when he's at it, he is arguably our best player. Like, he's that good. So most players, I'm not even going to lie to you, if it was this type of level of injuries back to back to back, I would have started saying put them on a shop window. Let's start looking at buyers. But I know the type of clubs that would come in for Reece James, and it's only the Manchester Cities who have been linked with him, the Real Madrids who have been linked with him. I think it's Perez's one of his biggest goals to bring on Reece James to the club, it was said in previous years gone by. He's not going anywhere other than the top, the tippity top. So we can't be entertaining that. For me personally, it's just not an option. But I really need him to return, because otherwise his career is going to go on a downward trajectory in terms of, will he be able to keep recovering from these injuries? Will he be able to get back to the level of performance we know he's capable of? Is it going to be a constant fight and struggle, tussle to perform at the highest level because of having to come back from an injury, then getting injured again, having to come back again? His body's going to take a toll on his body. It's going to start to deteriorate. What is a very physically demanding position. Whether you're defending 1v1 against wingers, Martinelli this weekend would have been a tough task, or going forward, you are up and down that flank, regardless of whether it's a wing-back system or not. So yeah, we got a lot to work on with that one. Also, unfortunately, continuing with the sad stories, Chukwuemeka is also suffering from knee pain. Again, not going to be available for Arsenal, I assume. Not that I would have expected him to start. I think it's pretty obvious that the guys in midfield right now deserve to be in there and deserve to start. We won't get into the preview in this video, but the team is pretty predictable for large parts. Palmer, obviously we hope that dead leg is not a major issue coming into the game. We'll see what Pochettino says. But the midfield three will clearly probably be Gallagher, Caicedo and Enzo, and rightly so. Gallagher's been playing really well recently. So Carney was never really going to start, but it's just a shame once again that a player that is on his way back, on his road to recovery, and has been, in and amongst it now for the last couple of weeks before the international break, was back with us, is now, suffering once again. So again, a minor setback, mainly because we have Palmer, but I don't really want to get into the position where we're, having to get too close to what could be a very depleted position. Now, if we was to lose Cole Palmer, touch wood, that never happens, but now we're really screwed. So I'd like the strength in depth to return, because when it does, this team has got much more capabilities and potential that people realise. So yeah, another setback there. Now let's move on, because we did kind of speak a bit on Arsenal, and I'm going to mention one little situation. I guess it's a good thing. It's a good problem to have. Mudryk versus Sterling. Who is going to play on that left-hand side? Mudryk scored against Malta yesterday. It was a wonderful goal. He was knocking on the door. Plenty of time in that match to produce some magic. I believe that's his first international goal, which really shocks me. But again, as I continue to go through these kind of moments with Mudryk, his first Chelsea goal, his first Ukraine goal, it tells me one thing, and that regardless of his age, this is a very young player in terms of minutes accumulated, because he's by far and away one of, if not, Ukraine's best player. When he's on his form, he would have had goals racked up if he was, playing at the highest level for longer. But this guy, like I said, is basically just fresh to the world at this point. He has not accumulated as many games as a 22-year-old really should have. But listen, he late bloomer. It is what it is. Wonderful goal, wonderful, well taken goal. Not just with the goal, but in that performance, other parts of his game improving all the time, little parts of his game on the rise. Mudryk, again, as I mentioned in a previous video, improving, showing his ball striking ability, which he had at PSV, but again, on the 21 England international level, it's good to see it once again come into the fold, come into the fore. And listen, the decision making will come with both these players, the final ball, all of these things. So yeah, hopefully this is moving me into the Sterling talk, which is who starts on that left flank. Because like I said, if Palmer is fit, which we really need him to be, he starts on the right and the midfield three is clear. So it's that position on the left wing that is up for debate. If it's not a situation where Palmer can start and I'm waiting on the latest, then maybe it will be Mudryk and Sterling, one on each flank. You put Mudryk on the left, you put Sterling on the right, and you kill two birds with one stone. You don't have any issues there, because Palmer maybe not fit to start, maybe comes off the bench, who knows. But ideally Palmer starts, because he's been incredible for us. So Mudryk versus Sterling. Now, for me personally, I've said it before, I'm not overly fussed. I'm leaning slightly probably towards more Sterling and bringing Mudryk off the bench. But Arsenal, it would suit probably Mudryk to play against Arsenal, because Arsenal probably look to dominate possession. They'll look to be in our half. There'll be lots of space in the opposition half. In that defensive third, we'll have loads of room to counter and transition quickly, which Mudryk will thrive in those moments. Sterling, if his decision making is on point, will also do well in those circumstances. So if it's a low block, I'd probably go with Sterling, but it's not going to be a low block. Now it could be an even game possession wise. Maybe Arsenal will choose to approach this differently to what we expect, and if it is more low block, tight spaces, and then I'm probably going towards Sterling, especially Sterling at his best is a better player than Mudryk currently. If Sterling's performing at his peak, he's capable of more with that experience and that history. But they both deserve it based on the fact, Mudryk has more games in the bank. I'd say on merit, you probably lean more towards Mudryk because he's had a couple of good games, where Sterling just had the one recently. But they're both high on confidence in terms of their goal scoring against Fulham, and obviously what Sterling was able to produce in the recent game as well. So it's a tough one. You let me know in the comments down below. I'm not always gonna just be definitive to be definitive for the sake of it. I actually don't mind who starts. I think I'll be happy regardless to see either or, if they continue to play the way they've been playing. So you let me know in the comments who your preference is. But yeah, it's a good problem to have right now, because they're both happy, I guess, and in form. And Sterling has a lot to prove to Southgate, because he's left out of the England squad the second time in a row. So he's gonna want to produce in a London derby of that magnitude. I think Sterling more likely to get it, but we'll see. Moving on to the stadium situation to finalise. More good news. We've gone in an upwards, kind of curve in this video. In the stadium situation, we have purchased a piece of land. There's housing on this land. Stoll own this, property for the veterans, and thankfully 80 million has been enough to acquire such property. Not a cheap part of London this is, but listen, we've managed to accumulate this, as you can see on the picture. This is kind of one, I guess you want to just call it plot of land number one. Now listen, we need more than just this pit, unless we're planning to build this stadium in a triangle, which will never have been done before, and I'd like to see how that looks on a bird's eye view. We need to purchase more than this. This position that we've purchased is merely fit for a car park. Do you know what I'm saying? It's merely fit for an extra museum. I don't know, like we can't really do much more with this unless, I don't know what they have in store to try and make this work, unless we maybe do an oval. It will be one hell of an oval. It's just, for me, what you look at is the stadium, and then just below that too, you see the housing along the main road. That really needs to be ours. Now, it's almost impossible for it to be ours because everybody's an individual owner of each house, and they're all extremely wealthy property in London. To convince every single one of them to sell, or at least in order of which it, you know, cuts off nicely, and we take that patch of land, and it's not, you know, dotted around in between houses, and, you know, neighbors want to keep it and then others don't, and you've got, like, you know, this kind of pattern of one in, one out situation. It's virtually impossible we're going to get that piece of land. Now, the only other thing I'm looking at is the hotels as well, and I'm thinking to myself, maybe we could do without that, scrap that. We're going to, you know, for building right from the beginning, then just completely take it down, stay in that slot, and then take those hotels away and see what you're working with then. But it's tough, I'm not gonna lie, it's tough without those houses just below the stadium. That is really the creme de la creme. If we were to accumulate that and we got the whole plot, we're cooking. We're absolutely, now we're able to build one of the best stadiums in the world, in my opinion. But yeah, it's a struggle. Now, whilst we are trying to get this situation sorted, there has been, you know, talks about the size of the stadium, minimum 55k capacity. Now, the aim for me was always 60. I'm not really too, listen, obviously it's great to flex your muscles and say, oh, we've got a bigger stadium than Arsenal, we've got a bigger stadium than Tottenham. To be honest, I just want us to have a bigger stadium for the revenue that is needed for the club, so we can continue to compete at the highest level, and hopefully it allows more fans to get tickets, etc. if it doesn't get completely boxed off into, you know, corporate and whatnot, which it probably will. But that's all it matters for me. Flexing, yes, is nice, but at the end of the day, it's not the main priority. I think the main priority is just getting a good capacity where we're not looking 5, 6, 7 years down the line after building and saying we actually need to extend again. And I think with 55 capacity, you're kind of playing in the red zone of not really having enough to secure for the next 20, 30 years, really. Highly unlikely you're going to look at that capacity and say you're not going to touch that and want to improve upon that again. So you want to get yourself to a number that's, you know, kind of clearing that to make this worth the wait, because the wait is going to, for 4 or 5 years, a Wembley, a Twickenham, a Craven Cottage was even mentioned, a stadium share, which for me is probably one of the worst outcomes. Don't want to share a stadium with Fulham. Their capacity is like 25k, and I mean, let's be honest, I mean, they're probably going to ask for, demand a share of the money as well, ticket allocation, because we're using their ground, so inconvenience to them. So yeah, it's just not ideal. Olympic Stadium was mentioned. Absolutely no way are we to do a stadium share of West Ham. Not only because I see them probably as a rival more than Fulham at this point, but also their stadium's awful. I hate the running track. It's just not for me. The design, obviously, from the Olympics, London 2012, I'm not a fan. So wouldn't want to be there whatsoever, even though the capacity is higher. Twickenham's probably the best option. We know Earls Court is off the list in terms of an option for moving, because they're building something else there that was already confirmed many months ago. And then Wembley is just so far, and it's just, it's a big pitch, I'll give it that. Like, Mudryk will cook on that pitch. It's the same way Werner cooked in the Bernabeu, you know what I mean? When we get this new stadium, please give us just those little extra centimetres of that pitch. I know it doesn't look like it makes a big difference, but when I saw Chelsea play away at the Santiago Bernabeu and I saw us play at Stamford Bridge, I thought, wow, this is like playing 2 different sports. So make sure whatever happens, this pitch is just slightly bigger, because we are a team that are attacking most of the time. If we're a counter-attacking team, low blocks, Burnley FC or whatever, under Sean Dyche, no problem. I'd take the tight, narrow pitch, but we ain't like that. We're not trying to play that way. So yeah, give us a bigger pitch. But what are we to do? What are we to do? We know the CPO own the pitch. We know that they're favouring staying at Stamford Bridge. The designs, listen, these designs that are up on screen now, they are just, you know, just enjoy them. It's not real. Most of them, the surrounding area doesn't look anything like what Stamford Bridge is obviously like on the King's Road. It's really just, you know, to keep you dreaming. Some of them look lovely, some of them look awful. Listen, staying on site would be incredible. It's my preference, obviously. I think most Chelsea fans' preference. It's where we've been since 1905. We are one of the only clubs, if not the only one, that have actually managed to stay in their actual location out of the big clubs in London for sure. You'd want to stick to that. That's something to be proud of, you know, something to really write home about. Is it possible to really reach the highest capacity? This is where the balancing act comes, because you do obviously know that those guys in charge, in terms of the business CEO of Chelsea and the guy that's going to be really pushing for most revenue streams and trying to maximize profits and all these things, which is getting the biggest capacity as possible, trying to buy up all of this expensive land in London, most of which people don't even want to sell anyway. 55k, I mean, it's not the most appetizing, not the most extravagant build you'll ever find where people are going to, get excited about, especially in the boardroom. So I'm sure they'd rather go for 60 and maybe even more. But listen, this land is very expensive, so I'll have to see what happens. You let me know in the comments down below though, at the end of this video, would you prefer to stay at Stamford Bridge or would you prefer to move somewhere else within the area? I mean, this is, like I said, it's a very difficult area to move in. The Earls Court one was already, kind of shut down, not going to happen. But would you trade off bigger stadium, higher capacity, and leave the original site? You let me know in the comments down below. But big up your damn selves. Make sure you smash up the likes. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. And of course, let me know about the stadium. Let me know about Mudryk versus Sterling. And of course, about Reece James, because that was extremely concerning. And I mean, listen, he hopefully, it's nothing huge. He had a scan, nothing came up. It seems like it's going to be okay. But just forget this incident alone. Just everything in general about Reece James's injury record over the last few years is very concerning. And yeah, some of the statistics are not nice, not kind. The amount of games he's missed, etc. So let us know in the comments down below. Smash up the likes, like I said before. Big up your damn selves. In a bit, people. Peace.
Setbacks.